My heart is so full this morning. My heart is so full, and I just have to say, to start with Jennifer and Barb, you have given us such beautiful gifts of music this morning. Thank you. Thank you. My heart is full because of the relationships and the work that has happened in this building this weekend. Some of you have been a part of this and know what I'm talking about. Let me fill the rest of you in. My heart is full because I got to meet and greet new colleagues this weekend. I am so grateful to the soon-to-be Reverend Mandy Goheen. Mandy, when is your ordination date? May 18th. We'll get to, that's a happy, happy thing. And my dear, dear longtime friend, Reverend Terry Bernor, who inspires me in so many ways. And I got to meet a fellow Texan from Borger, Texas, the Reverend Rodney Limery, and got to see again Hannah Franco Isaacs, who I've known for a while. These people all work with the Church of the Larger Fellowship, and specifically the Worthy Now Prison Ministry Network. Think about our first principle of Unitarian Universalism. We affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every human being. Worthy Now Prison Ministry Network says, you're not worthy later after you've served your time. You're not worthy later after you've made amends. You are worthy now. And hear me, that means all of us, no matter what we have done, and we have done some things, we are worthy now. Isn't that a restful place to be? Doesn't that fill you? It does me. I want to show you this before I forget it. This little gray card says Worthy Now, the Worthy Now Prison Ministry Network, and some of these are on the front welcome table by the Mount Curve doors, and Hannah and Rodney will be downstairs today in the lower assembly hall at the welcome table, get it? Welcome table, to sign you up for more information and talk more about the Worthy Now Network. Okay. So grateful that you're here. This weekend, these colleagues and I, along with about 10 members of this congregation and other congregations, joined together for a workshop about the prison industrial complex. Some of these congregants who joined in are currently pen pals. They're letter writers to people who are currently incarcerated. And if you would like to be a letter writer to people who are currently incarcerated, Hannah and Rodney will tell you how that can happen, right? Oh, yeah. Okay. We are just in the beginnings of a prison ministry here. And I use the word ministry as in to serve. Diane and Nick Rouse are helping to organize us, helping us to think what we need next and say, this is the groundwork. Boy, we generated a long list of to-dos. Oy, yesterday. It's exciting. A couple of the things that we will do is have a monthly support group for people who are letter writers. It is not the easiest thing to think. What do I, with my privilege out here in the free world, about to jet off to wherever I'm about to jet off to, maybe not. I got to walk down the street on a sunny day. Is that okay to say someone who is currently incarcerated? We don't know yet. We're going to figure it out together. We're going to talk to some people who know and figure it out together. So we'll have support for that. There's a group in the Stillwater prison who may wish to have some humanist conversations. What would it be like if we could take a humanist worship service, because that's the parlance that is used, to take that message there, and then when people are released and they are re-entering citizens, what would it be like to welcome them here? Oh my goodness. Would that stretch us a little bit? It would me. What would people need? And what is in our capacity to be in partnership with? My heart is full, and it's also full of questions. My heart is full, and it's also full of questions, and I'm a little anxious, and I don't know quite how it will work out. And I know for me, in the work of justice, that's a really powerful place to be. With that, I would like to welcome Mandy Goheen to our pulpit, and you tell us how we can live with the questions.
Thank you, and I am so filled with joy to be here today. And I want to say a special thank you to Roger, who made my job a little bit easier. Because the first thing I want to tell you is, about 11 years and 1 month ago, it was the first time I ever stepped foot into a community that was Unitarian Universalist. I was in a time of grief, and I had realized that the religious tradition of my childhood was no longer embracing my values. It was no longer the place of welcome that I needed. And so I took a little online test on BeliefNet and found out that I was 86% Unitarian Universalist. Apparently 97% liberal Quaker, and I was thinking that the quiet would be nice because I have 6 children, but also wondering at the same time how we would traverse that. So that week, we came to our first congregation in Ogden, Utah, and they blew me away. And the thing that blew me away is exactly what I was craving, which was a place that welcomed everyone, was that place. As my children grew and developed into adults and maybe someday move out of my house, they had a solid community of faith and reckoning and questioning to be with. And I was just amazed and sad at the same time. The thing that made me sad was the specificity of welcoming congregations. I didn't get it. I was new to this game. And the rainbow flag confused me, I have to be honest. I thought it meant all people. I wasn't exposed, I didn't understand. But when I found out what it meant, I was so amazed. But all people. And how do we welcome all people? People returning from trauma of mass incarceration into our, what we call free society, struggle to understand where to be and how to be with us, as much as we struggle to understand how to be with them. And I have been thinking a lot about this place and looking at your covenant and looking at all the joy you bring. I think about what a wonderful opportunity they would have to walk through these doors. But I don't think you're quite ready. And here's why not. There's this thing called safe congregations policy. And in a safe congregations policy, we understand and create boundaries for welcoming people in who may need some structure. Now that structure is a lot like a doorway to radical welcome. And first, the word radical, it comes from the roots of us. It comes from our desire to be with people. It comes from within. And we build that doorway, and I look straight back and I see the structure, and the door frame is like your covenant. Although door frames aren't quite flexible, covenants sometimes can be. And even though we fall out of covenant, we know how to get back into relationship. And that gives us a framework for walking through that door or moving through that door. The hinges are like our mission. It's the way that we can open the door, which I always think of Worthy Now, and I really appreciate you lifting it up that way, but that first principle is like the doorway. But something happens to those hinges. They rust, don't they? And that rust is like supremacy culture. And sometimes we need some WD-40 to loosen that up and to recognize that white supremacy exists is part of that radicalness, just understanding that it's around. If everybody said, I know that supremacy culture is real, I know that I have some privileges that maybe other folks don't have, then that door can swing open more gently in a more welcoming way. Imagine if it creaked open, if someone was coming in and you had to push it to get through. That wouldn't work, would it? And how we have a threshold beyond the door is also interesting. What is the thing that makes folks transition from being very purposefully welcomed into being part of this community? How do we become at peace and comfortable like we're coming home to a family gathering? Because we all need that, don't we? We need that third place to come to. We have family which can be tricky. We have friends that can be tricky, and sometimes we just need to sit here and listen and deepen and be at peace. And I want that for everyone. So remember, I was still not 100% Unitarian Universalist. There was still 14% of me that was wondering what I was. And so I packed my kids up and took them to church, and I didn't sign the book. I wasn't ready. I didn't understand the boundaries and structures that I needed to be comfortable in that space. And I know that sounds so strange that I would need rules to understand how to walk in or move in, but I need that so that I know where and when to engage, where and when I fit in. And you all need that too, because when we're welcoming people who have been labeled because of their worst day, we need to understand how not only to keep ourselves in safe space, but how to keep them in safe space too. And having that understanding and deepening really can change things. Somebody's like, why on earth are you so nerdy about safe congregations policy? That seems a little weird. But I studied it in seminary, and the more I understood it, the more it reminded me of being a foster parent. I was a foster parent for about 14 years until I adopted all the kids that came to our house. And then we had a 12-passenger van, and the rest is history. Our family was given something different, something that, I will just say it out loud, the Catholic Church wasn't bringing me, which was hope. And not romantic, gushy, we're all gonna skip through the flower garden together kind of hope. The kind of hope that holds me up. The kind of hope that Cornel West talks about when he says, I may not be an optimist, but I am a prisoner of hope. A prisoner of hope. Wouldn't that be a wonderful thing to be, instead of the folks that I'm serving? And I want to talk about them for a minute because I did a thing. I went to the Church of the Larger Fellowship as a brave new student at Star King School for the Ministry, and I said, hey, this looks like a cool place to be. What do you think of me? And they were like, it's a little too early. So in my next semester, they called me up and they said, you know, you were so passionate about prison ministry. We'd love for you to come on and be our learning fellow. And so I started out as the learning fellow for prison ministry, and the thing that really bugged me is these things that were called ministry were these silos. And there wasn't a place for people who were returning or people who were incarcerated to feel like they were part of our congregation. We bomb them with literature, trust me. They get UU World, they get Quest for Meaning, they get lots of letters. But what they weren't getting was that space beyond the word welcome. And so, in opening that space, I've been working with Hannah since I started, and now Rodney, and I see that creating that space beyond welcome has drastically moved our capacity to serve people into a positive direction. But the good news and the bad news is, in the next month, we're going to have 1,000 members, I'm guessing in the next month, 1,000 members who are living in incarceration across the United States who identify as Unitarian Universalists. 1,000. What can the Church of the Larger Fellowship do? Well, we can't do it alone. And for years, our letter writing team has been providing pastoral care and support and friendship and connection. And our team is great, but we can't do it alone, and we really need you all. And that's why this weekend was so wonderful. Just to see the eagerness and the openness to learn the hard stuff and to be uncomfortable together was just incredible. Together, we can welcome a whole person through our doorway. But I can't do it alone. And Rodney can't do it alone, and Hannah can't do it alone. We need folks to understand that when they come to this community, that we're going to be brave together. And we're going to change that language from "you are welcome here" to "you are one of us." One of the most joyous things that I get to do is answer mail from our members. And the idea that we are affirming of their identity saves their lives. I have been there for 5 years. I've gotten at least 10 letters that said, "Unitarian Universalism has saved my life." I was in darkness, and you showed me that there was a light in the world. There were people who cared about me today, not came to save me from being wicked or horrible, but recognized that spark in me of humanity and the fact that I have a potential to be a real person. And just to call someone by their name instead of a number can be radical welcoming. Just to recognize someone who is been on a journey beyond what was assigned at birth as far as name or identity and say, "You are part of us," is radical welcoming. And I am just so thrilled to be with you all and see how we can move through this work together. Because someday maybe I'll be standing here, or Rodney will be standing here, and we'll talk about that there are 2,000 members. And all of us are who made it possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mandy. Thank you, Rodney and Hannah and Terry, for your work in the world and for showing us that we can be so bold and so brave to join you. Terry and I are going to be working together to create a Minnesota satellite, a network for letter writers and people who are interested in dismantling this prison industrial complex and welcoming people into congregations. Terry and I are going to be working on it. several of you are going to be working on it. If you're interested and you're hooked by this idea, please talk to me, talk to Terry, talk to Diane or Nick Rouse, and join us in this work. This is the work of humanism as I understand it. We can make this world a better place for people who need it right now.